Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take all that source material you send our way, unpack it, and really get to the heart of the story.
And today, we've got quite the file. We're looking into the life, the impact, the whole story of Diana, Princess of Wales.
Yeah, it's more than just a royal biography, isn't it? She became this global figure. Her life and her death, too, really changed things for the royal family and, well, British society in general.
Absolutely. And you've given us a lot to work with here, sources covering everything from her aristocratic roots right through to her influence across the world and that tragic end.
So our mission today is to dive deep into all of this, pull out the key facts, understand the person behind the headlines, the contradictions, and figure out why she's still remembered as the people's princess.
And the sources frame it well right from the start. They talk about her, quote, activism and glamour, which made her an international icon, earned her enduring popularity. That's the core tension, isn't it?
Exactly. That mix of high glamour and very hands-on activism. How did that come about, especially under such relentless public watch? Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Diana Frances Spencer, born 1961, Park House, Sandringham, definitely born into privilege.
Right, into the aristocracy. But what's really key, I think, is how close the Spencers were to the royals already. This wasn't like an outsider marrying in.
Her family was already part of that world.
Deeply. Both her grandmothers were ladies-in-waiting to the Queen Mother. The families knew each other well. Apparently, Diana even called the Queen Aunt Lilibet growing up.
Wow. So proximity to the top tier from day one. But the sources paint a picture of a childhood that wasn't exactly straightforward. There was quite a bit of emotional difficulty.
Yes, starting right from her birth, believe it or not. Her parents had apparently been hoping strongly for a boy, an heir.
And that created pressure.
Immense pressure, it seems. The material mentions her mother being sent to clinics in London to figure out why she wasn't producing a male heir. Her brother, Charles Spencer, later called it humiliating.
Gosh, that's tough. Setting a tone of, well, not quite being what was wanted.
And that strain, according to her brother, might have been a factor in her parents' eventual divorce, which happened when Diana was, what, 7?
Yes, 1967, followed by a pretty difficult custody battle.
Which her father, Lord Althorp, won, apparently with some key support from his former mother-in-law, Lady Fermoy, Diana's maternal grandmother.
So that stability wasn't really there early on. The sources suggest this might have laid the groundwork for some later issues.
Well, you could argue that. It suggests a foundation of perhaps instability, maybe a sensitivity to rejection, a real need for affection and validation from outside. That pattern seems to play out later, tragically, in the full glare of the public eye.
And the family situation didn't immediately stabilize. Her relationship with her stepmother, Rayne, Countess of Dartmouth, was notoriously fraught.
Oh, yes. The sources have anecdotes about that. Real conflict. There's even a story about Diana pushing Rayne down the stairs once during a fight.
Yikes. Diana herself called her childhood very unhappy and very unstable.
It's complex, though. While Diana clearly resented her, Rayne was also apparently very devoted to Diana's father, especially after he had a stroke. But for a young Diana, it probably felt like an intrusion. More turbulence, certainly.
And then in 1975, her father becomes Earl Spencer, she becomes Lady Diana, and they move to Althorp, the big ancestral home.
Right. A change in status and location.
Now, moving on to her schooling, this is where things start to look a bit different from a typical sort of royal path. Academically, she wasn't a high flyer.
No, not at all. She failed her O-levels twice. Left West Heath Girls' School when she was 16. But she definitely had talents elsewhere.
Like what?
Music, for one. She was apparently a skilled pianist, and she was good at physical things, swimming, diving, ballet, tap dance.
So more artistic and physical than academic. Hints of that charisma, maybe?
Perhaps.
Well,
Confidence in movement, in performance, even if not in exams.
and what's really striking is what she did after school, before the engagement. Not exactly living the life of a lady waiting for a prince.
No, this is fascinating. She had a string of, well, pretty ordinary jobs, low-paying ones.
Like what? I remember reading she was a nanny?
She was. She worked as a dance instructor for a bit, but had a skiing accident. She did some cleaning for her sister Sarah, nanny for an American family, the Robertsons, and then finally worked as a nursery teacher's assistant.
At the Young England School in Pimlico. So she was actually earning her own living.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is a really key point the sources highlight. She was the first woman in line to be queen consort, basically, to have held a paying job before her engagement since Anne Hyde.
Anne Hyde. Way back when.
300 years earlier, yeah. It immediately set her apart.
What did people make of that at the time? A future princess working as a nursery assistant. Was it seen as charming or odd?
Oh, definitely charming. It made her seem incredibly normal, relatable, like a breath of fresh air compared to the, more sheltered aristocratic norm.
So it connected her to ordinary people right away?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It built that foundation for the people's princess ideal later on. She wasn't just some distant figure. She'd work jobs, earn money. It made her seem grounded.
Okay, so moving into the next phase. This is where Lady Diana Spencer becomes the Diana everyone knows. She met Charles back in 1977, right? When she was only 16.
Yeah, he was actually dating her older sister, Sarah, at the time. The serious relationship didn't start until 1980.
And then things moved fast. Invitations to the royal yacht, Balmoral. The standard courtship procedure, I suppose.
Pretty standard, yes, but also quite quick. The engagement was announced in February 1981. She just turned 20. He was 32.
That age gap, 12 years, we'll come back to that.
Definitely. And suddenly it's not a private romance anymore. It's a global event in the making.
The wedding itself, July 29th, 1981, St. Paul's Cathedral, that was huge. Billed as the ultimate fairy tale.
Absolutely massive. They chose St. Paul's specifically because it could hold more people than Westminster Abbey. And the TV audience, staggering.
750 million people worldwide watching this young woman marry the future king. Talk about pressure.
Huge pressure. But even in all that ceremony, there were little signs of Diana's own personality, maybe hints of what was to come.
Like what?
Well, she picked her own engagement ring from a catalog, Gerhardt. That wasn't the usual way things were done. A bit unconventional.
A sapphire surrounded by diamonds, right. Became iconic.
Totally iconic. And then during the vows, she actually got Charles's name slightly mixed up. A very human slip-up on a massive stage.
But the really significant thing, according to the sources, was the vow itself. They changed it.
Yes, at their request, apparently, the traditional promise for the bride to obey her husband was left out.
That feels like a conscious choice, a statement even then.
A very modern statement for the time, especially within that context. It signaled she wasn't just passively entering this role. People definitely noticed that.
Okay, so the fairy tale wedding happens. But the sources make it clear that the reality behind the scenes, well, it soured pretty quickly.
Yeah, the cracks started showing fairly early on. That incompatibility, the age difference, the material suggests it became a real issue within about 5 years.
And her personal struggles started even earlier, linked back to those needs we talked about from her childhood.
It seems so. The sources detail some really upsetting incidents, like Diana deliberately throwing herself down a staircase at Sandringham in January 1982.
While she was pregnant with a William.
Yes, about 12 weeks pregnant. She later said she felt so inadequate, just desperate. It's shocking to think about.
Utterly horrifying. And this was happening behind the palace walls while the public still saw the fairy tale.
Exactly. And then there was the postpartum depression after William was born. Plus her ongoing struggles with bulimia, which she kept hidden for years. Also self-harm.
All while having to project this image of perfection to the world and doing royal tours.
Yes, like that famous tour of Australia and New Zealand with baby William.
Yeah.
Hugely popular internationally, but immense pressure on her personally, dealing with all this underneath.
The press eventually caught on to the tension, didn't they? They had that nickname.
The Glumps.
Yeah.
By about 1987, yeah. You could see the strain in photos, and then, of course, the stories of affairs started to surface.
Diana started a relationship with James Hewitt, the army officer, around 1986.
Right. And around the same time, Charles rekindled his relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles. The sources are pretty clear the affairs were happening somewhat in parallel.
Before we go further, we have to address that rumor about Prince Harry's paternity. It still comes up sometimes.
We absolutely do. The sources, and Hewitt himself, are very clear. It's simply not true. Harry was born in 1984. Diana and Hewitt's relationship began roughly 2 years after Harry's birth. The resemblance thing is just that a resemblance. It's a cruel myth, frankly.
Good to clarify that definitively. So things are falling apart privately.
Yeah.
Then it bursts into the open in 1992 with Andrew Morton's book.
Diana. Her true story. That book was dynamite. It laid bare the marital problems, her unhappiness, the suicide attempts, the bulimia.
And the shock was amplified when it came out later that Diana herself had secretly collaborated.
Yes, she'd provided information through taped interviews with the go-between, James Colthurst. It was basically her way of getting her side of the story out, bypassing the palace control, a very calculated move.
Using the media, which she'd later have such a complex relationship with.
Exactly. It showed she was learning how to play that game.
Then came the tapes, the War of the Waleses, as the tabloids called it.
First, in August '92, Squidgygate. Tapes of Diana talking intimately with James Gilby. Then, early 93, the really damaging one for Charles, tampon jade.
Gosh, that was graphic and incredibly embarrassing for the future king.
Extremely. A very private, frankly quite crude conversation with Camilla made public. The whole fairy tale image was just shredded. The pressure was immense.
To the point where the prime minister had to get involved.
Yes, John Major announced their formal separation, described as amicable, which seems unlikely in Parliament in December 1992.
But the real point of no return publicly was that Panorama interview in November 1995.
The big one. Sat down in Kensington Palace talking to Martin Bashir, and she dropped that line.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. Unforgettable.
Absolutely devastating for the monarchy. She didn't just admit her own affair with Hewitt. She openly questioned Charles's suitability to be king, said the pressure might be too much for him.
It felt like she was burning her bridges completely.
It really did. But we now know there's a very troubling backstory to how that interview even happened.
Right, the 2021 inquiry. That found Martin Bashir used deceitful methods.
Absolutely crucial context now. Lord Dyson's inquiry found Bashir used forged bank statements, fake documents suggesting people close to Diana were being paid to spy on her.
He played on her fears.
Exactly. Exploited her fears and paranoia, as the report said, to gain her trust and secure the interview. Prince William later said that the way the interview was obtained significantly contributed to his mother's fear, paranoia, and isolation in those final years.
So it complicates the narrative. She spoke her truth, but the circumstances were unethical.
Deeply unethical. It adds another layer to her vulnerability, even as she was making this incredibly bold public statement.
And after that interview, divorce seemed inevitable.
Pretty much. The Queen herself wrote to both Charles and Diana soon after, advising them to divorce.
Which was finalized in August 1996. What were the terms?
A substantial settlement, a lump sum reportedly around £17 million, plus an annual allowance of about £400,000. Shared custody of William and Harry.
But the big symbolic loss was her title.
Yes. She lost the style Her Royal Highness, the HRH. She was still Diana, Princess of Wales, but losing the HRH was seen as a significant demotion, reportedly at Charles's insistence.
That must have hurt deeply. There's a poignant story about Prince William related to that, isn't there?
There is. Apparently, seeing how upset she was, a young Prince William told her, "Don't worry, Mummy, I will give it back to you one day when I am king."
Oh, wow. That just shows the weight on those children and his loyalty to her.
Absolutely. A very telling, very sad moment reflecting the huge personal cost of this public breakdown.
Okay, so post-divorce, Diana really stepped into her own as a public figure, didn't she? She seemed to shift her focus.
She did. The sources show a clear transition away from the more sort of traditional royal duties, opening hospitals, visiting schools, that kind of thing.
Which she still did, but the emphasis changed.
Exactly. She honed in on causes that were maybe less comfortable, more challenging, serious illnesses, health issues, things society often shied away from. She was still incredibly busy, 397 official engagements in 1991 alone, just to give you an idea of her work rate.
But the type of engagement shifted towards activism, like her work on HIV and AIDS back in the 80s.
That was absolutely groundbreaking. You have to remember the context of the fear and misinformation surrounding AIDS back then was enormous. Huge stigma.
And she just cut right through it.
She did, by doing something very simple but powerful. She touched people with AIDS, shook their hands, sat on their beds, talked to them, without gloves.
Which was radical at the time.
Hugely radical. She was the first high-profile figure, certainly the first royal, to do that so publicly. It sent a clear message. HIV does not make people dangerous to know.
And that simple act had a massive impact on public attitudes, didn't it?
It really did. It helped to destigmatize the illness almost overnight. Nelson Mandela later praised her specifically for using her platform to fight stigma.
But this wasn't always popular within the establishment, was it? The sources mentioned some friction.
Definitely. Diana apparently expressed disappointment that the Queen had suggested she focus on something more pleasant. It highlights that tension. Diana wanted to tackle the difficult issues head-on.
While the traditional view was perhaps more about maintaining a certain image.
Possibly. Avoiding controversy. Diana seemed to see her role differently as an agent for change, using her profile to force people to confront uncomfortable realities.
And that definitely came to a head with the landmines campaign. That caused a real political stir.
Oh, yes. Her work with the Halo Trust, a demining charity, that led to those incredibly famous images from Angola in January 1997.
Walking through a minefield in a flak jacket and visor. Unforgettable picture.
Exactly. It wasn't just a photo op. It was a deliberate move to draw global attention to the horrific legacy of anti-personnel landmines.
But it wasn't universally applauded back home. Some politicians were quite critical.
Very critical. A government minister, Lord Howe, publicly called her a loose cannon for getting involved in what he saw as a political issue.
Meddling in foreign policy, essentially.
That was the accusation, that she was overstepping the apolitical bounds of royalty, potentially complicating government negotiations on a mine ban treaty.
But did her involvement actually make a difference?
The impact seems undeniable. Halo credits her visit with massively boosting international awareness. And despite the initial criticism, the UK Foreign Secretary at the time, Robin Cook, later publicly praised her work in Parliament.
He linked it to the Ottawa Treaty?
He did. He suggested her campaigning helped pave the way for the international treaty banning landmines. And then, just a few months after her death, the international campaign to ban landmines won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Wow. So vindication, really.
A powerful legacy on that issue, certainly. She put a human face on a complex problem and created unstoppable momentum.
And she had other key areas of focus, too, didn't she? Homelessness?
Yes, she was a longtime supporter of Centerpoint. And crucially, she didn't just lend her name. She took William and Harry on private visits to shelters.
To show them the reality.
Exactly. To make sure they understood it wasn't just an abstract issue. She also worked with cancer charities, like the Royal Marsden Hospital, and continued to challenge stigma around leprosy.
Still touching patients, showing they weren't unclean or reviled.
That physical connection, that empathy, was her trademark. It was about using her unique position, not just for visibility, but for active compassion and change. Here, an enduring legacy.
So in that final year after the divorce, Diana seemed to be forging this independent global role, but her personal life was still under intense scrutiny.
Absolutely. She was arguably more famous than ever, but also perhaps more exposed. Romantically, the most significant relationship during that period seems to have been with Dr. Hasnat Khan.
The heart surgeon, the sources say she was very serious about him.
Yes, many close to her described him as the love of her life. She called him Mr. Wonderful, but it was kept very private, largely because he couldn't handle the media circus that came with her.
And that relationship ended just before?
It did. It seems they broke up in the summer of 1997. Khan later testified that Diana ended it, though the reasons remained somewhat private.
And very shortly after that, she began seeing Dodi Fayed.
Yes, son of Mohammed Al-Fayed, the owner of Harrods at the time. She accepted an invitation to join their family in the south of France that summer. Apparently, her plans to take the boys to the Hamptons had fallen through due to security issues.
And that relationship with Dodi instantly became massive news. Paparazzi frenzy.
Complete frenzy. And there's an interesting, maybe slightly cynical take on this in the sources from biographer Tina Brown. Brown suggests the relationship with Dodi might have been, partly at least, a deliberate ploy by Diana.
A ploy for what?
To make Hasnat Khan jealous, to perhaps provoke him into making a public commitment by showing she was moving on with someone else, very publicly.
Wow. Whether that's true or not, it suggests she was very aware of how the media worked and how to use it.
Extremely aware. It speaks to that complex relationship she had with the press, needing it, using it, but also being hounded by it.
Which brings us, tragically, to August 31st, 1997, the car crash in Paris.
In the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, the car was speeding, trying to escape pursuing paparazzi photographers on motorbikes. Diana, Dodi Fayed, and the driver, Henri Paul, were all killed. Only the bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, survived, though severely injured.
The driver, Henri Paul, was later found to have high levels of alcohol and prescription drugs in his system.
Yes, that was a key finding. The official inquest concluded it was an unlawful killing, meaning it wasn't just a simple accident. The verdict blamed the crash on the gross negligence of the driver, Henri Paul, for speeding and being intoxicated, and the actions of the pursuing paparazzi vehicles.
So responsibility was shared, legally speaking.
Correct. The chase contributed directly to the reckless driving.
The public reaction to her death, it was just unprecedented, wasn't it?
Absolutely unlike anything Britain had seen before in modern times. This spontaneous, massive outpouring of public grief. Flowers piled high outside Kensington Palace.
Huge crowds for the funeral. The TV audience was enormous.
Peak of 32.1 million in the UK alone. Billions watched worldwide. It felt like the whole world stopped. The monarchy itself seemed unsure how to react initially, leading to that rare live broadcast from the Queen.
And her brother, Lord Spencer, gave that very powerful eulogy.
Yes, where he said she proved she needed no royal title to continue to generate her particular brand of magic, a direct reference to the HRH being taken away.
Of course, with such a shocking event, conspiracy theories started almost immediately.
They did. Fueled for years, very publicly, by Mohammed al-Fayed. He insisted it wasn't an accident, alleging involvement by MI6, even Prince Philip.
A long campaign.
10 years. He eventually announced in 2008 he was ending his public campaign, saying he was doing it for the sake of William and Harry. But it shows how deeply the event resonated, how hard it was for some to accept the official verdict.
Looking back now, her legacy is so tied up with the media. That complex push-pull relationship.
It's central. She was possibly the most photographed woman in the world. She complained bitterly about the intrusion, the paparazzi hunting her.
She also used them. Leaked stories.
There's strong evidence she did. That claim by the former tabloid editor Clive Goodman that she gave him a royal phone directory.
To get back at Charles.
That was the allegation. It suggests she understood media power and wasn't afraid to use it, even while condemning its excesses when they turned on her. She wasn't just a passive victim.
She's a player in the game.
The very skilled one, arguably. But the game had incredibly high stakes, and ultimately, she couldn't control it.
Another huge part of her legacy is fashion. She remains a style icon.
Undeniably. Her style evolution was fascinating and very deliberate. From the sort of shy, ruffled Sloane Ranger look early on, to much bolder, more confident choices later.
The revenge dress has to be mentioned.
But absolutely. The black off-the-shoulder dress she wore the night Charles confessed his adultery on TV, a masterstroke of nonverbal communication. Total power move.
Using fashion to send a message?
Constantly. Her clothes became more businesslike, more streamlined when she focused on her charity work, to keep the focus on the cause, not the outfit. And bags she carried became instant. It's bags the Gucci Diana, the Lady Dior.
And then there's the title that stuck, the one Tony Blair gave her.
The People's Princess. It just captured that connection she had, that emotional resonance with the public that bypassed traditional deference.
Alistair Campbell said her death changed Britain, made it less stiff upper lip.
Yes, it seemed to unlock a more open display of public emotion. Her vulnerability, her willingness to speak about her struggles resonated deeply.
And that influence continues through her sons, William and Harry.
Very much so. You see echoes of her work in their own charitable focuses. Mental health, homelessness, challenging stigma. William took over her patronage of Centerpoint.
And both granddaughters have Diana in their names.
Charlotte, Elizabeth Diana, and Lilibet Diana, a direct link, ensuring her memory is woven into the fabric of the future monarchy.
So wrapping this up, what's the key takeaway for you listening now? Why does understanding Diana still matter?
Well, I think her story is fundamental to understanding how the monarchy operates today. Its relationship with the public, with the media, how modern royals approach charity. She forced change, willingly or not.
And her willingness to talk about things like mental health, eating disorders, that really changed the conversation, didn't it?
It cracked open subjects that were previously taboo, especially for public figures. Her legacy there is huge. She showed how charisma and vulnerability could connect with people in a way protocol never could.
Before we finish this deep dive, let's just touch on that atmosphere of paranoia again. We mentioned Martin Bashir exploiting her fears.
Right. And the sources contain this striking detail. In late 1995, Diana actually told her lawyer, Lord Mishcon, that she believed reliable sources had warned her.
Warned her about what?
That there was a plan for both her and Camilla Parker Bowles to be put aside so Charles could marry Tiggy Lade Burke, who was his assistant, and William and Harry's former nanny.
Seriously? She believed that?
She apparently believed it strongly enough to write it down in a note to her butler, Paul Burrell. Whether it was based on any reality or was pure paranoia fueled by the situation, who knows?
But it reveals the intensity of the pressure cooker she was living in. That fear of being plotted against, replaced, maybe even harmed. What does that tell us about the price she paid?
It suggests the cost of being the people's princess trapped in that media spotlight during such a bitter public breakdown was perhaps an unbearable level of fear and mistrust. It's a really sobering thought to end on, isn't it? The dark side of that global icon status.
Indeed it is. Something for you to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the complex life and lasting legacy of Diana, Princess of Wales.